Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video, unless it's your first time here, in which case I welcome you to subscribe. I'd love for you to subscribe, especially since we're starting a brand new series here. I recently released a video, I'll try to link it up here now, but I just got some new whetstones from paulsfinest.com. Check it out. Best in the business regarding a retailer or distributor for sharpening gear. Freehand whetstones and different products. They also carry a selection of fine knives as well. So you want to check them out. But I recently got some new stones. I have a whole set of freehand whetstones, all water stones that I've invested in over many years. And I mentioned in that video that I showed the other day, I want to start a series. Now this idea has been building in my mind. I want to start a series where we go an in-depth look, listen, just an experience of each whetstone that I have here, which starts from very coarse grits to very high grits. So we're going to get to see the whole spectrum, different types of stones, some on the lower end, kind of the cheaper, much more affordable scale, and some are very expensive stones that probably not many of you would bother investing in. But the idea behind this, if any of you guys are like me, maybe some of you can relate, maybe I'm just crazy, but I love the experience of everything. I want to get as many facets or understand and experience as many aspects or senses regarding something before I make a purchase or before I invest in something. So when it comes to whetstones, what do they sound like? What do they feel like? What do they look like? I want to get as many different facets of the experience as I can before I purchase. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of that, maybe a little bit of an ASMR style when it comes to really experiencing something here. So we're going to get started today. Let's take a look at the knife candidate that we'll be working at. Don't turn this off. We have some surprises for this video that I want you guys to check out. So first off, the knife. If you didn't know, if you're new here, I am a knife maker, a custom knife maker, and this is the very first kitchen knife or chef's knife I ever built. I've built quite a few knives at this point. This is my very first one. It sits in just a basic cherry wood block here. It's carbon steel, that's why you can see some of that staining, patina. Check out that shape. It's made from 01 carbon steel, which is a very beautiful knife steel. It's 1/8 inch stock. 1/8 inch all the way up until we start to taper on this grind. It's not a distilled tang here. Notice it maintains that 1/8 inch all the way until it dips here for the grind, which is kind of a medium flat. This is 2 inches of depth here, just to give you an idea. So we have roughly 1 inch of bevel all the way along there. And this knife is dull at this point. You can see I can be kind of rough with it there. It doesn't really do any damage. We have my can stamp. This has a Newfoundland birch handle, unstabilized brass pins. This is the stock handle. I've been using this knife for, I believe, 3 years now, ever since I first made it. I love it. I love the deep profile because it means you can get your hand here like this in over the cutting board. I don't like being forced to keep my hand behind the cutting board just because I don't have enough depth here. So that's why this nice deep pattern, okay? Make sure it's real dull there. Okay, I really like this design. I've modeled several other patterns after it since, and it's our candidate for this series. So any of you with any experience in knives and sharpening will know this knife. Oh, look at that, we grabbed a little bit right there. This knife is very dull. Looks like we have a little bit of sharpness up towards the tip, but it is dull. See that? So every stone we use will be placed in this Nanawa stone holder. This is just the base $40 or $50 stone holder. Let's have a nice close look. So you have these steel rods that go all the way through here. This end is fixed, so it's mounted inside this block of rubber, which is a little bit, I'll say, squishy. You can slightly malform the rubber there, but you hear that grip into the granite, it's sticky. which is what you want. It also keeps your stone up off the surface so your hands have room here. Notice my knuckles. When your stone is flat on the ground, you have no room for your hands, so you have to be holding atop the knife like this, which is awkward. You have this, get your hands up off there. Also nice for water and keep your stone in place. This centerpiece here is a support for the back of your stone, and this end piece moves to grip different size stones. Now the stone will sit right inside. You see this ledge here? So we'll slide this out, bump it up against it just like that, and then we simply thread in these knurled knobs. Now I don't always tighten up my stone like this because your stone's not moving, but you can see it bites onto your stone. Your stone is up nice and high. It's a really beautiful piece of equipment. I was sharpening for probably a couple years before I had one of these, and I really regretted not buying one sooner because I just immediately fell in love with it. It's so nice. It's got the Nanowa branding there. They're not expensive, and even if you're just starting out, buy one right from the start. Now here is the first stone in this series. This is the Sigma Power Select 2. It's a ceramic stone. It's a 240 grit ceramic stone. It is very, very aggressive. I would not recommend this stone for a beginner because you can do a lot of damage very quickly. You would use this stone if you had to reprofile a knife edge by hand, or if you had some really bad nicks or chips or rolls in an edge that you really need to cut back some steel. This is where you'd use a stone this aggressive. Ceramic is already an aggressive cutter, and to be a 240 grit, it's lower than most stones you'd use, so it's quite aggressive. It's quite hard, quite dense, and you hear that sound? It's quite a rough stone. Now I have never had a real coarse stone that didn't need soaking. I guess because the particles are so big, they tend to be porous, they drink up a lot of water, and this one is no different. Higher grit stones may not need to be soaked, but this one does. Let me show you what'll happen. So if you try to sharpen this dry right now, and if you try to sharpen it dry without soaking it, it will cut really aggressively for a short period of time. Then your stone, all the little pores in there will pack full of metal dust, and it will stop working. You'll also damage your stone a lot more quickly. You'll be shaving away at the dry particles, so you don't want to do that. Now, these are not what is called splash and go stones, because let me show you what happens if you splash this stone. Like I said, a really, really thirsty stone. You could do this for quite some time before the water would actually just sit there. Isn't that cool? Very porous stone, very thirsty, so it needs to be soaked for several minutes before you're able to use it. Let's watch what happens here when we drop it in some water. Notice a few bubbles releasing. This is the water drawing into the stone and pushing any air in the pores of the stone out. Now before you get started sharpening a knife, what you want to do is hold your knife such that light shines directly on this edge. Now that's very hard to convey with a camera like this, and with wavering focus, or it's hard to bring in and out of focus. I'll throw up a picture there now, a picture of what this edge looks like right now. But if you get it directly, light shining down on this edge, it will pick up flat spots along the edge. Those are the spots you need to remove. Okay, we should have it here now. Let's get started. Give that stone a little rinse. Yeah, now it's not drinking in the water nearly as fast, but a stone like this, you'll need to keep splashing it, keep it wet. So let's get some water on there right from the start. Let's work with the stone. Have a listen. Now with just those 3 passes, you can see how we're already beginning to clean up and reestablish a bevel on this side compared to the other side, which is still stained and dark. We have carved off the top of that surface. So this is why this is not a beginner stone. It's a stone that you can use quite a bit of pressure with. It is a little bit easy to mark the surface of the stone, especially with the tip of the knife. So with a more thin knife like this, I wouldn't necessarily need to go to a stone like this unless I had some bigger problems, like a chip or a dent or something like that. But I just want to show you what this stone does. We need to spend very little time on this stone. I'm already switching to just single cutting strokes, but lots of pressure here. Notice the sound. Anyone who's used to whetstones or tools will recognize how coarse this sounds. And I am pulling a sediment up off the stone. I can see that here on the stone. Just looking to bring those 2 edges together and create a burr. So that reflection we saw at the beginning of the video, we need to work until that reflection is gone. We don't want light to be able to catch that edge unless it's just the burr. Lightening pressure now. You can really change how a stone works just with pressure alone. You can hear as it starts to dry out, sounds a little more aggressive. A stone like this can be very messy to use because you need to do a lot of water. Some people use a squirt bottle so they can really control their water. So notice here now, I'm going to get you a couple shots of just how aggressive the pattern is and the striations left from this stone. Very aggressive, deep scratches. So you'll want to consider that when you're sharpening fine things. Also notice how toothy that edge is, and notice that fine dangling burr at the edge there. It's very minimal. I've removed a lot of the burr just by my ending strokes. But notice how deep those scratches are. Notice now, I mean you can see those scratches especially after reflection, but notice you can actually see some of those little fine wires from the burr that's just about removed, but notice that you have almost no light reflecting like there was in the original image. Just a reference, that's a 240 grit stone. So a lot of those paper dicing tests, even though I've utilized them a lot myself, doesn't tell you that much. When you get really experienced at knife sharpening, you're not looking for it to slice paper, you're looking for the way it feels slicing the paper. You're looking for how it sounds when you're slicing the paper. But this 240 grit stone, as you can see, can produce quite a usable edge for certain tasks. So that is our experience with the Sigma Power Select 2. As you can see, it is a very coarse, very aggressive stone. It does dish very easily because the particles are easy to remove. That's what I find with a really coarse stone. It's easy to pick up those pieces of sediment out of the stone, and when they dislodge, of course, the more that happens, the more your stone dishes. You're scooping away at your stone. When I'm done with this stone, I just give it a little rinse off. After a couple of uses, it'll need a little bit of flattening. Not so much with knives, but if you're doing something really particular, you might need to flatten your stone. And I'll set it back to dry. Because this holds so much water, it will take a few days to dry out, to just air dry on its own. You don't want to bake it, you don't want to do anything substantial to it. Just sit it by, let it dry. It'll soak in any extra water, so it won't really bleed water, but it'll take a while. This stone is twice the weight now as what it was before we started soaking it. Hope you enjoyed this video. You can probably get an idea of what we're going to be doing here now. I'll be doing this with every stone. You'll be able to get an idea of what kind of stones you might want, what's the thing for you. I'll give you some hints, tips, and tricks along the way. If I think of any, we'll see what I can come up with. But I appreciate you watching. Hit that like button. If you have the ability, please share. Subscribe to my channel if it's your first time here. Comment down below. Let me know if there is a specific stone out there in the world that you would like me to check out. Maybe we can get it. Maybe I already have it. We'll see. But yeah, this is what we're going to be doing. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next video.